Welcome to the Mr Adebole Show. On this episode, we have with us today Asiko, a famous photographer. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Why Asiko?
So when I started taking photographs, I was very interested in the moment. So Asiko kind of represented the idea of the moment, Asiko, as in time, in that translation to Yoruba. So then I was very, very much about time and freezing time. I mean, right now I kind of create the time. So the images are more created and they're more conceptualized. So it's a bit different, but Asiko sounded cool, so I kind of went with that.
Did you start off wanting to be a photographer? Or how did that just happen?
You want to ask my parents that? Yeah, they didn't send me to school to be a photographer, but photography was something I found much later in life. I've got a degree in chemistry. I have a master's in bioinformatics. I'd worked in the pharmaceutical industry for, I don't know, probably about 10, probably even 15 years. But I found photography at my time doing that. I'd always been interested in art, and photography was a way to express my art. So I think me going down the route of photography was something that was helpful to me, and it inspired me to continue to show what I do as an artist.
Okay. So moving from, having a degree and a master's in pharmaceutical, how did you transcend from being a guy that sits with a computer all day to a guy that takes camera out there and to go and take pictures?
I think I always...
A bit of background.
I always wanted to express what I do. I always wanted to express the things I had in my head.
Yeah.
And I think photography for me was that outlet. In terms of me actually making that transition, it was one of those things where, I had this little camera between contracts and I just started taking photographs. So it wasn't something that, oh, you know what, I'm going to be a photographer. I just started taking photographs. And a month in, I kind of got rid of the camera. And I had to buy a bigger camera to start actually playing with ideas and start photographing things. And it was a hobby. But then a friend of mine actually said, I'd love you to shoot my wedding. And I thought, that's weird. Why would you pay me? I'm just starting out. But she said my photos are good. So I did 1 or 2 weddings for about a year. But then I moved into things I wanted to shoot, which was more conceptual portraiture.
I've seen some of your stuff, and I've noticed that you use different kind of cameras. At times, sometimes you even take pictures, some of these pictures with a phone. So can you give us some in-depth insight into, cameras nowadays and pictures nowadays, the relationship?
I think we're at an interesting time. So everybody has a phone.
Yeah.
So everybody can take photos.
Yeah.
So in terms of the camera is really not important, in my opinion. Understanding how to use a camera is good. It gives you an understanding of light. It gives you an understanding of shutter speed and all the technicalities, which I'm not the most technical person. I need to understand it. But for me, photography is more about ideas and more about conceptualizing my ideas and creating artwork, essentially. So if somebody asks me what camera I use, it's a Canon 5D Mark IV. It's just a tool, honestly. It's more about the image for me.
So this journey of photography, so where has it taken you?
It's taken me to actually meet some really interesting people. Meet some...
We don't mind you dropping names.
All right. So I've met, obviously I get to meet actors and actresses. So, Zainab Balogun, who I met here. There's Asiko London, who I've shot with. Just this week, I was with Auntie Mo Abudu, who runs Ebony Live TV. So I did some work for her as well. So I get to meet people, which for me is really interesting. For me, the great thing is I get to work with people, and I guess in a way we meld our minds. We bring ideas to the table to work on interesting ideas or things to do.
In this field of work, how do you measure success? How do you...
So I feel success is very relative. It's subjective. For some photographers, it's if they've made, I don't know, 50 grand in a year. That's success for them.
Yeah.
For some, it's about accolades. I think there are little bits of that for me, but one of the big things that moves me is when my work resonates and when it speaks to people. So I'll give an example. I did a project a few years ago called Layers. I worked with these brilliant women. One's a florist, and the other is a makeup artist.
So these are those pictures that are on the table. I'll pick them up so that viewers at home can actually see them, can see these pictures. So this is a nice, beautiful old lady.
So the lady is in her 70s. She'd actually worked as a journalist years ago, when she was still working. But what we did was we photographed about 40 women over the period of a month. And each week we photographed different women at different stages of their lives. And we had this flower wall at the end, behind them, which started off with flowers. And then as time went on, obviously the flowers would die. But we started putting things like foliage and fruits into the flower wall. So the flower wall started to actually, in a strange way, grow and was different. So this is at the end of the whole project, I would say, and she's in her 70s. She worked as a journalist for all her life. So one of the things I wanted to do was capture the grace and beauty that she has. All the lines and the wrinkles, it's important to leave that stuff in there. That shows that she has lived a life. I think too much these days we're all about retouching and taking away lines. But that's human to have those lines. So I wanted to make sure we showed her with grace and beauty, and then we even had like a little wind machine to kind of blow her hair.
I can actually see that. That was very beautiful.
Her hair down.
Hopefully our viewers at home can actually see this as well. This is a very beautiful picture. There's another one up here which I think is part of the same project, Layers.
Yeah, so this was at the beginning of the project, and Sanjina here, she's early 20s, so and it's showing also the flowers of blossoming in your 20s, or before your 30s, or even in your 30s. You're young, you feel you can do anything, vibrant and stuff. But the interesting thing is, when we spoke to all these people, obviously the ones who are older have been through life, and they've had layers and layers of intuition, of wisdom, of understanding. So they're at such different times in their lives, in terms of.
It's quite interesting. You touched on something there. You said money. You were talking. Some people get paid, £50,000. In Nigeria, there's a few photographs which I know that get paid millions of naira to take pictures. Even for wedding, and you see them jumping up and down, holding different lights, and, trying to get people.
Of course.
And they get paid so much money.
Of course.
So at times I sit here questioning myself and asking, I don't know what he's done. Why is he getting paid that much? Can you give us some kind of insight into that market?
Sure, of course. So I'm not a wedding photographer, but I will give you some insight in terms of okay, there are kind of two levels of this. Wedding photography is a lot of work. It can actually be quite stressful. So imagine in a Niger wedding, you have thousands of people, and then maybe part of the families want all portraits of people in the wedding. Mama, this is in the wedding. I didn't see a picture. So the photographer has to cover all those sorts of images, but then the photographer has to bring a little bit of themselves into the image, and that comes in form of creativity. If you're just taking bog standard pictures, nobody's gonna hire you. So a friend of mine, Jide Alakija, is like one of the biggest photographers in Nigeria when it comes to weddings. But Jide is creative, so everybody wants to work with Jide, and everybody wants to use Jide, and they pay him. He gets on first-class flights to come to Nigeria, and they pay for everything.
For taking photos. I think I missed. I got the wrong job there.
There's the idea that photography it's a derogatory sort of role, but it's not. Imagine for a bride, that's her wedding day. Those pictures are a memory that she will have for a lifetime. it's when she's going to, you know, take so much time to look good.
Yeah.
You know, it's a happy day. Her whole family is there.
Yeah.
Basically, if the wedding photographer messes up,
that's it.
That sucks for the family.
So all the memories are gone.
Exactly. So it's important. And in Nigeria, we love to show off. We're quite ostentatious. We love to show off who we are and what we are. We show off our culture. We show off our money.
Yeah, yeah.
That all needs to be captured. So the wedding photographer is huge. It's very, so most, I guess most photographers in Nigeria do weddings.
Just tying in, since we're on Nigeria, another project you worked on recently is called Project Conversation.
Yeah, it's called Conversation. Yeah.
So can you give us more, tell us a bit more about that?
Okay, so a few years ago, a colleague I worked with who's Ethiopian, told me about FGM. Now, FGM is female genitalia mutilation. Okay. And she told me when she was 13 how she was pinned down and how she was cut.
Wow.
Now, this is tradition.
At the age of 13?
Yes.
This wasn't done, you know,
when you're a baby. No.
So you have to get to the age of 13.
Yeah, in your early teens.
And then you get pinned down and cut.
Yeah. So she told me how she was cut. Now, I was oblivious to this previously because...
Is this just based on tradition or religion? Any background into this?
So it's a mix of both. So if we go... I wish I had a map, and maybe I'll share one with you. But if we look at the map of Africa, the biggest concentration of FGM is through the West Africa, leading up to the other side of East Africa. So your Ethiopia, Somalia, all those places. Funny enough, in the middle belt, and it's not that much.
So some part of Nigeria still does this?
Oh yeah, very much. So Oshogbo and in Oyo State and those areas, there's quite a big thing of FGM. So speaking to her, I was moved by that, and I was actually quite shocked that this happens. It's interesting how you're not exposed to things, and then when you do, it's like a gut punch. And then I found out about all this other stuff, and this is all violence against women. But then there's no violence against men. Now there's violence against men, but in the context of this, when you're coming of age, when you're young and stuff. And I found that this is a product of patriarchal societies, and Nigeria is a patriarchal society. You know, the men run everything. The women are considered second-class citizens. So it affects women in not the best way. So I found out about things like, you know, there's obviously child marriage. You know, a girl who's barely in her teens or not even up to her teens is married off. Then you also have breast ironing, where people heat up stones and they actually put it on the female breast, or around her chest area, it's actually tied to kind of suppress it from growing. And in cases like this, it's done by the mom because she feels like she doesn't want her child to be sexual and not sexual.
Is this the whole idea of FGM for the viewers at home, so they can see these pictures?
Now that's a conceptual idea.
This is what FGM looks like.
I wouldn't say that's what it looks like.
But this is the kind of things that, you know, it's really horrible.
I mean, you're cut, and it's a gruesome, and it affects. You see, the thing is, it's one thing to be cut, but that affects the woman for the rest of her life. It affects her psychologically. It affects her mentally. It affects her physically as well. So a lot of women have trauma from it, and it affects when they're having children or actually sexual encounters.
The problem is, I don't understand. At this day and age, where majority of people, even part of Nigeria or Africa, we're all enlightened. We're connected to the global world. Why is this still going on? What is the point?
So this also is to look at how societies are set up. So even when people go to school now, I going to school or I guess exposing yourself, no, not exposing yourself, maybe connecting on the internet and seeing how other worlds happen, can kind of bring some sort of enlightenment. But you have to remember, culture and tradition have a very strong arc. And those cultures and traditions are usually set up and instigated by men. So they've been set up and it's passed down from generation to generation. Now women feel like this is our culture, so we must do it. So it's actually the women that carry out this, these very, you know, it was done to a woman when she's young, so she's like, yes, this is tradition, so it should be done to her daughter or
talking about breast ironing, I'm sure this is, for the viewers at home, this is depiction of breast ironing. For the viewers at home, I don't know, you know, even the thought of someone ironing a breast, for what reason? Why would we do this?
So some of the mums, this tends to be around Cameroon. They want to keep their daughter safe, and in a way it's done to not show that the daughter is sexually coming of age. So in a way it's a form of protection, but also it's kind of what has been passed down from generation. This is what we do.
So the idea is you hurt your child to protect her. That's pretty much what I'm hearing there.
But sometimes isn't that
you damage the child to protect her?
But isn't that it's more about, I love you so much that I will protect you. Sometimes it's about being enlightened. It's about education, and we still have I guess we still have a long way to go. But I was moved by this, and I decided to create some images about it to promote a conversation. So when this was shown at my gallery, at the Gallery of African Art in London, there was a whole conversation about it. And for me, that was one of the things I wanted to get out of this whole project.
I think just seeing these images, and I know you've done a lot of research into it, is there anything done by the government of those countries in reference to...
They're little things. They're little things. They're things that are happening. They're working. So in England, there's the English government didn't know about this until until a few years ago. So there are a lot of people campaigning, and it's coming out from the Black community, which is good because the white community wouldn't fully understand this. But now they're coming to grips. So even the NHS are now being trained to be able to see this. Exactly. Because it also happens in Asian and Arabic type families as well. It's not just an African thing. It's not just an African thing. So things are happening in Africa. Things are happening as well. Maybe not as fast as we'd hoped, but the numbers are beginning to go down.
Anyway, moving on. If you were to choose one of your, one of the images you ever shot, which one sticks with you? Which one? Of course, all of these images here are very, very powerful. So is there any one particular one that you say sticks with you, and when you look at it, it resonates with you, it has so much meaning and power that you feel? Even that, like artists have things that I'm never going to sell this. So is there anyone like that you have in your collection?
That's an interesting question. I've never actually thought about that. One of the things I do is I make work, and I kind of give it out. I didn't send it out into the world, whether it's going to be shown in an exhibition or it's going to be showcased somewhere, wherever, and I kind of let it go, and I kind of move on. And I'm one of those people, especially when I've done retouching or editing, I like to kind of walk away. Because I'm now thinking of new things I want to do and stuff. Maybe in years to come, I'll retrospect and start looking back. So I can't say I have like a favorite image. I wouldn't say I do. That's a bit of a hard one as well.
You were talking about how parents saw the transition from being a successful guy in in the pharmaceutical industry to photography. What advice would you give parents that are watching us at home and children that are watching this and saying, okay, guess what? I like that. I want to do that as well. I want to, mom, I want to be a photographer. What advice would you give them? Would you tell them, you know what, just give them the freedom, let them do it?
Okay, I'm going to talk to people in there. Yeah, don't do it. Don't become a photographer. Don't do it. Bad idea. Okay, look. It's important you find. I'm going to go spiritual now.
Yeah.
It's important you find your God-given talent, purpose, passion, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I think too often we do things for the sake of money, which I understand.
Yeah,
we live in a world, we need to have stuff that we want. But even if you're doing whatever it is you're doing to make money, it's important to find something you are passionate about and live in that thing.
Yeah.
And maybe in the future it becomes your thing.
Your thing, yeah.
But even if it doesn't become your thing, if it's that side thing where you get joy and fulfillment, so it could be anything. Maybe you're serving in a homeless place, or maybe you're advocating for women that are beaten up, or whatever.
Yeah.
Find that thing, and usually that thing which you find you're actually equipped naturally to do that thing.
Yeah.
It's actually a natural thing. So I'm I picked up a camera and it kind of made sense.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really taking photos before then.
Yeah, yeah.
But I kind of knew where I wanted to go, and I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew the things I wanted to talk about. And it just made sense.
Yeah.
I feel I was given an eye and an intuition. Yeah, just lean into the things that inspire you.
Which I don't know. I think we've learned so much today, our viewers at home. Thank you so much for coming, and
you're welcome.
This has been extremely interesting and moving at the same time. If people want to keep up with your work and everything, how would they reach you?
Sure. So I'm on the internet. If you type in Asiko, you'll find me. But I kind of live on Instagram. So Asiko_artist, or if you just type in Asiko, I'll kind of come up. Spelling Asiko, ASIKO, in Yoruba language means time.
Yes. For our viewers at home, if you're going through any of this stuff, this FGM and breast ironing, is there any charities that they might be able to speak to?
Sure, yeah. So there's a lot of stuff on the internet, but I've worked with a few charities. So there's Forward UK, and then there's 28 Too Many. These are charities that help women and help connect with them. Yeah. So those are good.
So guys, please reach out if you're going to any of this issue. And thanks again for watching. Thank you so much. And join us again next week with the next episode of Michael Adekoloye Show. Thank you so much.